sought shelter, the lost Apache woman, until the cowboy whispered, "Stay with me tonight." Her body ached from the long journey she had been forced to take, a journey that had begun weeks ago when her village had been attacked. The memory of that day haunted her constantly, the screams, the smoke, and the confusion that had sent her running into the wide, empty plains. She had been only 19, full of hope and dreams, but the world had changed in an instant. Now she was alone, surrounded by miles of arid land, with nothing but the sky above and the harsh earth beneath her. Naya tried to sit up, but her legs trembled from exhaustion. She had not eaten in over a day, and the little water she had carried was almost gone. Every step she had taken in the past hours had been slow and painful. Her feet were blistered, and the thin sandals she wore offered little protection from the sharp stones and dry, thorny plants that seemed to grow wherever she walked. She looked around, hoping to see some sign of life, some path to safety, but all she saw was the same golden, sun-baked land stretching endlessly in every direction. The wind was strong that morning, carrying with it dust and dry leaves. It scratched against Naya's skin and made her eyes water. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders, trying to shield herself from the relentless breeze. Despite the harshness of her surroundings, she pressed on. She could not stop, not yet. Stopping meant danger, and danger had followed her for too long. She had learned quickly that survival was about moving forward, even when every part of her body screamed for rest. As the day wore on, Naya's stomach growled loudly, reminding her of the urgency of finding food. She had been able to forage small berries and roots along the way, but they were few, and she could feel her strength slowly leaving her. The sun climbed higher and the heat pressed down, making the land shimmer like an endless desert. Her throat was dry and her lips cracked. She knew she needed water soon or she would not make it much longer. She scanned the horizon for a stream, a pond, or even a small patch of shade where she could rest. But there was nothing, only the open plains, scattered with thorn bushes and dry grass. Hours passed, and Naya's hope began to fade. Each step felt heavier than the last, and she stumbled several times over the uneven ground. Her mind wandered back to her village, to the faces of her family, the laughter that had once filled her home, and the smells of food cooking over an open fire. She had grown up learning the ways of her people, the plants that healed, the animals that provided sustenance, and the songs that told stories of courage and survival. All of that seemed so far away now, almost like another life. The world she had known had vanished in a single day, leaving her in a strange and unforgiving land. By mid-afternoon, Naya saw something in the distance that made her heart leap, a small structure, barely visible against the dry earth. It looked like a cabin, old and weathered, with smoke curling faintly from its chimney. She did not know who might live there, if anyone, but the sight of shelter filled her with a cautious hope. She quickened her pace, dragging her tired legs as best as she could. With every step, she imagined a warm fire, a safe place to rest, and perhaps a kind stranger who might help her. The thought alone was enough to push her forward, giving her strength she did not think she had left. As she approached the cabin, Naya's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and relief. The building seemed abandoned, with cracks in the wood and windows covered in dust. She hesitated at the door, unsure whether she should enter. What if someone was inside? What if they were not friendly? But the need for rest and safety outweighed her caution. Slowly, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was musty, filled with the smell of old wood and dust, but it was better than the wind and sun outside. She let out a deep sigh, feeling a sense of relief she had not felt in days. The cabin was small and simple, with only a few pieces of furniture. There was a wooden table, a couple of chairs, and a small fireplace that had clearly not been used in some time. Naya walked around carefully, checking for anything that could be useful. She found an old blanket folded in the corner and quickly wrapped it around herself, feeling warmth seep back into her cold, tired body. The sense of security, though fragile, was enough to calm her nerves. For the first time in what felt like forever, she could close her eyes and allow herself a moment of peace. Night began to fall, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. Naya built a small fire in the fireplace, using dry wood she found nearby. The flames flickered and danced, casting shadows on the walls of the cabin. She watched the fire, mesmerized as the warmth spread through her body. The sound of the crackling wood was comforting, a reminder that she was alive, that she had survived yet another day. For the first time since leaving her village, she allowed herself to imagine a future, even if it was uncertain. As the fire burned low, Naya prepared to sleep. She ate a few dried berries she had kept in her bag and drank the last of her water. Her body was weary, but her mind was still alert. She knew she could not let her guard down completely. The world outside was unpredictable, and she had learned that danger could appear at any moment. Still, the small cabin, the fire, and the blanket offered a temporary sanctuary. It was enough to let her breathe, enough to let her dream of safety, if only for a few hours. In the quiet of the night, Naya's thoughts wandered. She thought about her family, the people she had lost, and the life she had once known. She remembered the stories her grandmother had told her, stories of brave women and men who faced impossible odds and survived. She drew strength from those memories, reminding herself that she, too, could endure. The world outside was vast and harsh, but she was determined not to give up. She had come too far, fought too hard, and survived too many challenges to stop now. Hours passed, and the stars filled the sky, twinkling like tiny beacons of hope. Naya lay on the old blanket, listening to the wind outside and the faint sounds of nocturnal animals moving through the plains. Despite the uncertainty of her journey, she felt a quiet determination growing inside her. She had survived this far, and she would continue to survive. The night was long, but it was also a time for reflection, a time to gather strength for the journey ahead. Naya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of exhaustion finally pull her into a deep, dreamless sleep. Morning arrived with the soft light of dawn filtering through the dusty windows. Naya awoke, feeling slightly stronger after the night's rest. She knew she could not stay in the cabin forever. The world outside awaited, and she had no idea what challenges the day would bring. But for now, she felt ready. She had found shelter, even if temporary, and she had survived another night. That small victory gave her hope and the courage to continue her journey. The plains were still vast and unforgiving, but Naya was alive, and that meant anything was possible. With renewed determination, Naya stepped outside, squinting against the bright morning sun. The landscape stretched endlessly before her, dry and golden, with distant hills rising against the horizon. She tightened her shawl around her shoulders, adjusted the small bag on her back, and began walking once more. Each step was heavy, but each step was a step toward survival, toward hope, and toward an uncertain but possible future. The wind whispered across the plains, carrying with it the promise of new encounters, new challenges, and perhaps, just perhaps, new friends who could help her find her place in this harsh world. Naya's journey was far from over, but the night in the cabin had reminded her of something crucial. Even in the harshest conditions, a little shelter, a little warmth, and a little hope could make all the difference. It was a lesson she would carry with her through the coming days, a lesson that survival was not just about strength, but about courage, resilience, and the ability to keep moving forward no matter how difficult the path might be. And so, with the morning sun at her back, Naya continued her journey, ready to face whatever lay ahead, determined to find safety, and perhaps, in time, to find a new place to call home. The morning sun had warmed the plains, but the heat did not make Naya's journey any easier. Her legs ached from walking, and her stomach still grumbled, empty and complaining. Yet she kept moving. The cabin had given her rest, but she knew that staying in one place too long was dangerous. She needed food, water, and safety, and the vast wilderness offered no promises. Each step was measured and careful. She had learned to watch for snakes, hidden rocks, and uneven ground. The land seemed endless, stretching in every direction, a golden ocean under the wide sky. Hours passed, and Naya's hope began to waver. She had seen no signs of life, no birds flying overhead, no animals moving through the dry grass. She wondered if she was truly alone in this world, or if the isolation was part of a test, a way to see how far she could go. Her thoughts drifted back to the stories her mother had told her as a child, tales of people who survived against all odds. Naya reminded herself of those stories now, drawing courage from the words her mother had spoken. She was not ready to give up. She would keep walking, no matter how tired she became. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Naya finally noticed a flicker in the distance. At first, she thought it was a mirage, the heat playing tricks on her eyes. But as she focused, she realized it was movement, horses, galloping across the plains, kicking up dust as they came closer. Naya froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen strangers so close, and she did not know if they meant harm. The stories of raids and violence her people had told her as a child returned to her mind, reminding her to be cautious. She ducked behind a small rock, peering out from her hiding spot. The riders were approaching fast, but they did not appear hostile. They seemed to be traveling with purpose, moving from one point to another, unaware of her presence. As the riders drew nearer, one of them broke away from the group and slowed, heading in her direction. Naya's heart skipped a beat. She did not know who this man was, and fear tightened its grip on her chest. Should she run? Should she stay hidden? Her mind raced, considering every possibility. Finally, she chose caution. She stayed still, her body pressed low to the ground, watching as the horseman approached. The man wore a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his eyes, and his clothing was rough but clean, practical for life on the plains. There was something calm in the way he rode, a gentle rhythm in the movement of his horse. He slowed even more as he noticed the cabin, and then he saw her, sitting quietly among the rocks. The man stopped a few yards away and raised a hand in greeting. His voice when he spoke was soft and calm. "Hello there," he said. "Are you all right?" Naya's instincts screamed at her to be wary, but something in the man's tone was different. It carried kindness, not threat. She hesitated, unsure whether to answer. Her throat was dry and her lips trembled. She swallowed hard and finally said, I'm okay. I am just resting." Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it carried enough to reach him. The man nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she had said. "I don't mean to startle you," he said. "My name is Jackson. I saw your fire this morning. You're alone out here." Naya's heart beat faster at the question. She had been alone for so long, and the idea of speaking to someone, anyone, was both terrifying and relieving. She nodded, her hands gripping her shawl tightly around her shoulders. "Yes," she said simply, I am trying to find safety." Her words were hesitant but honest. She did not know if she could trust him, yet something about his calm demeanor suggested that he might not harm her. Jackson dismounted from his horse and stepped closer, careful not to frighten her. He carried water and a small bundle of supplies, which he offered to her. "Here," he said gently. "You look like you could use a drink." Naya hesitated for a moment, her pride warring with her need. She had been taught to be independent, to rely on herself, but the exhaustion in her body made the offer impossible to refuse. She stepped forward cautiously and took the water, her fingers brushing against his hand. The gesture was small, but it carried a silent acknowledgement. For now, she would accept help. As she drank, Naya studied Jackson carefully. His eyes were kind, deep brown and calm, and his face was weathered by the sun and wind, but it carried an expression of understanding rather than judgment. She noticed his hands, calloused from work, yet gentle as he held the supplies. There was a quiet strength in him, a sense that he had endured hardships of his own. She felt a flicker of trust growing inside her, small but undeniable. Perhaps she had finally found someone who would not harm her, someone who might help her find her way through this vast, unforgiving land. Jackson spoke again, his voice steady and reassuring. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you. I can help you if you let me." Naya hesitated, her instincts warning her to stay cautious, but she also knew that refusing could mean missing an opportunity for safety. She nodded slightly, still keeping her distance but allowing herself to be seen. "I thank you," she whispered. The words felt heavy, as if they carried all the exhaustion and fear she had held inside for days. Speaking them aloud made the reality of her situation even clearer. She was alone, and she needed help. Jackson smiled gently, understanding her hesitation. "It's all right," he said. "We don't need to rush. You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Naya nodded again, unsure if she wanted to speak of the horrors she had faced. The memories of her village, the loss of her family, the chaos and fear, were still too fresh. Yet there was something in Jackson's presence that made it easier to share, even a little. She found herself telling him small pieces of her story, the journey she had taken, the hunger and exhaustion, and the fear that never seemed to leave her side. She spoke slowly, carefully, as if testing whether he could be trusted. Jackson listened without interruption, nodding and occasionally offering a word of comfort. "You're very strong," he said finally. "I can see it in your eyes. You've survived more than most people could imagine." His words carried a sincerity that touched Naya deeply. She had felt alone for so long, with no one to understand the weight she carried. Hearing someone acknowledge her strength made a part of her relax just a little. She realized that she did not need to carry everything alone, at least not tonight. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the plains. Naya knew she needed more than water and kind words. She needed a place to rest, somewhere safe for the night. She looked at Jackson, unsure how to ask for help without appearing weak. Jackson seemed to understand. "There's a cabin nearby," he said gently. "It's small, but it's safe. We can stay there until morning. You won't have to be alone tonight." Naya's heart skipped a beat. The offer was simple, but it carried so much meaning. Safety, warmth, and the chance to rest, things she had not known for days. She nodded slowly, trusting him enough to follow. Together, they walked toward the cabin, Jackson leading the way and Naya following closely. Her steps were slow, but she felt a sense of relief with every stride. The world outside was still vast and unpredictable, but for the first time in days, she felt that she had someone by her side, someone who would not abandon her. The cabin appeared as they neared it, small and weathered, but sheltering and promising safety. Naya stepped inside, feeling the weight of exhaustion finally pressing down fully upon her. The warmth of the space, combined with Jackson's presence, was comforting beyond words. Inside the cabin, Naya and Jackson arranged a small fire. The flames danced and crackled, filling the room with light and heat. Naya sat quietly, watching the fire, feeling its warmth seep into her tired muscles. Jackson handed her a small piece of bread and some dried fruit he had brought along. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, her hunger momentarily sated. The cabin was simple, yet it felt like a palace compared to the endless plains outside. For the first time in days, Naya allowed herself to relax, even if just a little. As the evening wore on, Naya and Jackson talked quietly by the fire. She shared small stories of her family and village, careful to leave out the most painful details. Jackson listened attentively, offering comfort without pressing for more than she wanted to share. There was a quiet understanding between them, a recognition of hardship and survival. They did not need many words to connect. The simple act of being together, of sharing space and warmth, was enough to build trust. Naya began to feel a sense of calm, a feeling she had not experienced in a long time. The world outside was still dangerous, but inside the cabin there was peace. Night fell, and the stars began to appear through the small window of the cabin. Naya felt a mixture of gratitude and cautious hope. She was still alone in the world, but not completely. For the first time since her journey began, she realized that she could rely on another person, that she did not have to face every danger by herself. Jackson's presence was steady and reassuring, a reminder that kindness still existed even in a harsh world. Naya closed her eyes briefly, listening to the crackling fire and the soft sounds of the planes outside, feeling a sense of security she had not known in days. The afternoon sky had begun to change when Naya and Jackson stepped outside of the cabin. Clouds, dark and heavy, were rolling across the horizon. A cool breeze had started to blow, rustling the dry grass and carrying the distant smell of rain. Naya shivered slightly, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The sudden chill reminded her how exposed they were to the elements, even with the brief warmth of the sun earlier. Jackson noticed her discomfort and gestured toward the cabin. "It looks like a storm is coming," he said softly. "We should stay inside for a while." Naya nodded, thankful for his attention. She had learned over the past few days that survival was not just about finding food and water. It was also about knowing when to take shelter and when to move. Jackson seemed to understand this instinctively. The first drops of rain began to fall lightly, tapping against the wooden roof of the cabin. Naya watched as the drops turned into a steady stream, creating a rhythmic patter that filled the small space. The sound was comforting at first, but soon it grew louder, echoing through the cabin and making the walls feel smaller, more protective. The fire they had built earlier cast dancing shadows across the room, and the warmth from it wrapped around Naya like a gentle hug. She realized that she felt safer than she had in days. There was a strange comfort in knowing that she was not completely alone, that someone else was here, sharing the same space and watching over her. Jackson moved quietly, checking the windows and making sure the cabin was secure. "We'll be safe here," he said reassuringly, though his voice carried calm authority. He seemed to know the land and its dangers well, as if he had spent his life learning how to read the weather and understand the signs of nature. Naya watched him, impressed by his quiet competence. It was comforting to be around someone who could handle challenges without panic, who seemed to understand that fear could be managed with knowledge and preparation. She realized that this man, who had been a stranger only hours ago, was becoming someone she could rely on. As the storm grew stronger, the wind began to howl outside, shaking the cabin slightly. The rain hit the roof with increasing force, and occasional flashes of lightning lit up the small room. Naya felt a twinge of fear, remembering nights spent alone in the open plains, where storms could be dangerous and unpredictable. But this time was different. Jackson stayed calm, tending to the fire and ensuring the cabin remained safe. He moved with confidence, speaking softly when he noticed Naya's anxiety. "It's all right," he said. "The storm will pass. You're safe here." His words, combined with his steady presence, helped her calm her racing thoughts. She realized that safety was not just about physical protection. It was also about trust and companionship. The storm lasted for hours, giving Naya plenty of time to reflect on her journey. She thought about the days she had spent wandering the plains alone, about the fear that had never left her, and about the moments of despair when she had questioned whether she would survive. Now, sitting by the fire with Jackson nearby, she felt a strange sense of peace. It was not complete, not yet, but it was a start. She realized that even in a harsh and unpredictable world, there were moments of safety and comfort, moments where one could breathe and gather strength before facing the next challenge. As the rain continued outside, Naya and Jackson began to share stories. At first, the conversation was light, simple exchanges about the land, the weather, and the small pleasures of life. Naya spoke about her village, careful to avoid the most painful memories, while Jackson shared stories of his own life, growing up on the plains and learning to survive in a world that could be unforgiving. The exchange was slow at first, tentative, but it created a bridge between them, a connection built on shared experience and understanding. Naya felt a warmth not only from the fire but from the sense of companionship. It was a feeling she had not known for a long time, a reminder that humans were not meant to face hardships entirely alone. Hours passed, and the storm showed no signs of letting up. Naya noticed that Jackson seemed to sense her unease before she even spoke. "You're tired," he said gently, observing her from across the room. "You've been through a lot, you should rest." She nodded, grateful for his concern. She felt the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her, the kind of deep weariness that comes from days of walking, worrying, and surviving. Jackson helped her arrange the blanket she had brought, adding a few extra layers he had found in the cabin. The gesture was small but meaningful, a demonstration of care and attention that did not require words. Naya settled down near the fire, letting the warmth envelop her. Jackson sat nearby, his presence steady and calm. She noticed the quiet way he watched over her, without intruding, without making her feel uncomfortable. It was a delicate balance, and it reassured her. She realized that trust could grow slowly, like a small plant nurtured in the right conditions. The fire crackled, the storm raged outside, and inside the cabin there was a sense of safety, a feeling that for this one night the world could be held at bay. The conversation between them grew deeper as the evening progressed. Naya found herself opening up about the fears that had haunted her since leaving her village, the fear of being alone, of not finding food or water, and the constant worry that danger lurked around every corner. Jackson listened without judgment, offering understanding rather than advice. He shared his own experiences with loss and hardship, talking about the loneliness that had followed him through years of living on the plains. The stories were different, but the emotions were similar: fear, loss, hope, and the determination to survive. Naya realized that there was comfort in shared experience, in knowing that someone else understood the trials of life, even if their circumstances were not identical. As the night deepened, the storm began to ease, leaving behind a gentle rain and the soft sounds of dripping water from the roof. The fire had burned low, casting a warm glow over the cabin. Naya felt a sense of calm that she had not experienced for many nights. She looked at Jackson, noticing the way the firelight highlighted his features, and felt a quiet appreciation for his presence. There was no rush, no pressure, just a simple companionship that spoke volumes. It was a reminder that even in a world full of uncertainty, moments of connection could provide strength and courage. Naya's thoughts turned inward as she reflected on the day. She had survived the storm, found shelter, and shared her story with someone who listened. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. She realized that survival was not only about physical strength but also about emotional resilience, the ability to trust, and the courage to allow others in. Jackson had offered her all of these things without demanding anything in return. She felt gratitude, a quiet but deep sense of appreciation for the kindness he had shown. It was a feeling she would carry with her, a reminder that human connection could be a powerful source of comfort and strength. As the night wore on, Naya finally allowed herself to rest fully. She curled up near the fire, feeling the warmth seep into her tired body. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside fresh and quiet. The wind had died down, and the rain had softened to a gentle drizzle. Inside the cabin, there was a sense of peace, a rare moment of calm in a life that had been filled with uncertainty and danger. Naya closed her eyes, letting the events of the day wash over her. She had survived, she had found shelter, and she had found a connection that made the world feel a little less lonely. Jackson remained nearby, tending to the fire and ensuring that Naya remained comfortable. His presence was steady, a silent reassurance that she was not alone. He did not speak unnecessarily, but his calm demeanor and gentle actions conveyed care and understanding. Naya felt a sense of safety she had not known for days. The cabin, the fire, and Jackson's presence created a small world where she could breathe, gather strength, and prepare for the journey ahead. It was a rare gift, and she knew she would remember it for a long time. As Naya drifted into sleep, the sound of the storm fading into the distance, she realized that this night was more than just a temporary refuge. It was a turning point, a moment where fear began to give way to hope. She understood that she could face the challenges of the plains with courage, not only because of her own strength, but also because of the presence of someone who cared. Jackson had offered more than shelter. He had offered understanding, kindness, and the possibility of trust. It was a quiet, powerful gesture that reminded her of the importance of human connection in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. The night passed quietly, with Naya resting near the fire and Jackson keeping watch. The cabin was warm, safe, and filled with a gentle sense of companionship. For the first time in many days, Naya felt a deep sense of peace. She had endured the storm, found shelter, and discovered the comfort of trust. It was a simple, quiet victory, but it was meaningful. The world outside remained vast and unpredictable, but inside the cabin there was warmth, safety, and a reminder that even in the hardest times, kindness could be found. The morning after the storm was calm and still. The rain had stopped, leaving the plains refreshed and glistening under the gentle light of dawn. Small puddles reflected the colors of the sky, and the air was crisp and cool, carrying the earthy scent of wet soil and grass. Naya stretched her tired muscles, feeling the comfort of having slept on the soft blanket by the fire. Her body still ached from the journey and the tension of the past days, but her spirit felt lighter. The storm had passed, and with it came a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She glanced at Jackson, who was quietly tending to the fire, adding small pieces of wood to keep it burning. His movements were steady and calm, and there was a gentle focus in the way he worked. Naya admired his quiet competence. He had been a steady presence through the storm, offering help without asking for anything in return. She realized that she had begun to trust him, though she still kept some of her caution. Trust was not easy for someone who had faced so much danger, but she felt a small seed of confidence growing inside her. The warmth of the cabin and the fire had brought a sense of safety that Naya had not experienced in weeks. She noticed the way Jackson glanced at her occasionally, not with judgment or expectation, but with awareness, as if he understood her need for both space and companionship. The silence between them was comfortable, not awkward, and it gave Naya time to think. She reflected on the journey she had taken, the fear, the exhaustion, the moments of despair. And now, for the first time in days, she felt that she could breathe and rest without feeling immediately threatened by the world outside. As the day wore on, Jackson moved about the cabin, preparing a simple meal from the supplies he had brought. Naya watched quietly, feeling grateful for his care and attention. She knew she would have to continue her journey soon, but for now, the cabin was a sanctuary. The storm outside had reminded her of the harshness of nature, and she realized how vulnerable she was. Jackson's presence, steady and reliable, had given her a sense of security she had not known for a long time. It was a rare feeling, one that made her heart feel lighter despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead. After the meal, Naya settled near the fire, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. Jackson sat nearby, his gaze soft and attentive. The conversation between them had grown quieter, shifting from stories of the past to observations about the present. Naya spoke of the plains, the way the light changed after a storm, and the beauty she had noticed even in such a harsh environment. Jackson listened, occasionally sharing his own thoughts but mostly allowing her to express herself. There was an unspoken understanding forming between them, a recognition of shared humanity and the struggles they had both faced. As evening approached, Naya felt the familiar ache of exhaustion returning. She had walked, worried, and endured much over the past days, and her body reminded her that it was in need of rest. Jackson noticed her weariness and spoke softly. "You should rest. You've done enough for one day." Naya nodded, appreciating the gentle guidance. There was no force in his words, only concern, and that made it easier for her to accept. She realized that accepting help did not make her weak. It simply acknowledged the reality that she could not do everything alone. For the first time, she felt that it was acceptable to lean on someone else, even if just for a night. As night fell, the cabin was quiet, lit only by the soft glow of the fire. Outside, the plains were dark and still, a vast expanse under the moonlight. Naya sat quietly, feeling the calm of the evening settle over her. Jackson's presence was comforting, a steady anchor in the midst of uncertainty. She noticed the way he moved quietly around the room, checking the fire, making sure she was comfortable. His actions were gentle, careful, and considerate. There was no rush, no pressure, only a quiet attentiveness that made her feel safe. Then, in a moment of quiet understanding, Jackson leaned slightly closer and whispered, "Stay with me tonight." His voice was soft, almost a murmur, carrying no expectation but a simple offer of companionship and protection. Naya's heart skipped a beat. The words were simple, yet they carried a weight she hadn't anticipated. She looked at him, unsure how to respond. Fear and caution warred with the longing for safety and warmth. She had spent so many nights alone, facing the harshness of the plains without anyone to share the burden. This offer, gentle and unassuming, was unlike anything she had expected. For a moment, Naya said nothing. She considered the risk, as she always did, her mind turning over every possibility. But she also considered the relief that accepting might bring. The idea of spending the night without fear, of having someone watch over her, was a temptation too strong to ignore. Slowly she nodded, her eyes meeting Jackson's. There was a silent agreement in that nod, a mutual understanding that this was a simple act of trust and care, nothing more complicated. For the first time in days, Naya allowed herself to feel safe without reservation. They arranged the blanket together near the fire, careful to give each other space while sharing the warmth. Naya noticed how simple gestures, like the way Jackson adjusted the blanket or added small pieces of wood to the fire, conveyed care and attention without words. There was a comfort in that simplicity, a reassurance that safety could be offered without conditions or demands. Naya felt the tension in her body slowly ease, the exhaustion of the journey mingling with the relief of having found shelter and companionship. As the night deepened, Naya and Jackson spoke quietly. The conversation was calm, reflective, and unhurried. They shared thoughts about life, survival, and the world outside the cabin. Naya felt a strange sense of peace in the quiet exchange. She realized that trust could be built slowly, through actions rather than words, through presence rather than promises. Jackson had shown her that even in a harsh world, there were people who could offer safety, kindness, and understanding without judgment. That realization was powerful, comforting, and quietly transformative. The fire crackled gently, casting flickering light across the cabin walls. Naya watched the flames, feeling their warmth seep into her tired muscles. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the fears she had faced, and the moments of despair she had endured. And yet, despite all the hardships, she felt a sense of hope growing inside her. The storm, the cabin, and Jackson's presence had reminded her that even in the harshest circumstances, there could be moments of calm and safety. It was a lesson she would carry forward, a reminder that survival was not just about endurance, but also about accepting help when it was offered. As the hours passed, Naya began to drift towards sleep, the blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders and the fire providing gentle warmth. Jackson remained nearby, attentive without being intrusive, ensuring that she was comfortable and secure. There was a quiet bond forming between them, one built on trust, care, and the simple act of being present for each other. Naya realized that this night was different from any she had experienced since leaving her village. It was not just a night of rest. It was a night of connection, a reminder that she was not entirely alone in the world. She felt a calm settle over her mind, the kind of calm that comes from knowing someone else is watching over you, someone who understands the need for safety and companionship. The whispered offer, simple and unassuming, had created a turning point for her. It had allowed her to let go of some of the fear that had weighed so heavily on her shoulders. For the first time in days, she felt a quiet hope that she could continue her journey with strength, knowing that not all strangers were dangerous, and that trust could exist even in a harsh world. The night was long, but it passed quietly, filled with the gentle sounds of the fire and the occasional whisper of the wind outside. Naya felt the weight of exhaustion finally lift as sleep embraced her. She understood that the journey ahead would still be difficult, but she also understood that she did not have to face it entirely alone. Jackson's presence, steady and caring, had shown her that trust and kindness were possible, even in the midst of fear and uncertainty. And as she drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep, she carried with her the knowledge that safety, comfort, and human connection could exist even in the most unexpected of places. Morning arrived gently, with soft sunlight spilling through the small window of the cabin. Naya awoke slowly, feeling the warmth of the blanket and the lingering comfort of the fire. For the first time in many days, she felt truly rested. Her body still ached from the long journey and the storm the night before, but her spirit felt lighter. She took a deep breath, noticing the freshness of the air that had replaced the oppressive heat of previous days. The world outside seemed vast, but somehow it felt less threatening. There was a sense of calm and quiet hope that had not existed before. Jackson was already awake, tending to the fire and preparing a small breakfast. He moved quietly, careful not to wake her fully, but his presence was reassuring. Naya watched him for a moment, appreciating the care he had shown through the previous night. He had offered her safety, warmth, and understanding when she had felt most vulnerable. She realized how much she had relied on his steady presence and how much trust she had begun to place in him. It was a simple recognition, but it carried weight. For the first time, she felt that she could rely on someone else without fear. After eating, they stepped outside to face the plains together. The storm had left the land glistening with dew and puddles reflecting the clear sky. The air smelled of earth and rain, fresh and invigorating. Naya felt a sense of determination growing inside her. She had survived the journey, found shelter, and experienced trust and companionship for the first time in weeks. She knew that she could not stay in the cabin forever. The world beyond awaited, and there were still challenges ahead. But now she felt ready to face them with Jackson by her side. Jackson spoke softly as they walked. "We should find a safe path from here," he said. "There are settlements not too far where you can rest, eat, and plan your next steps. You don't have to go alone." Naya nodded, grateful for his guidance. She had been wandering the plains alone for so long, relying solely on her instincts. The thought of traveling with someone who understood the land and the dangers it held gave her hope. She realized that survival was easier when shared with someone trustworthy, and for the first time, she felt the weight of loneliness begin to lift. As they traveled, Naya noticed the small details of the land that had previously escaped her attention. The way the light danced on the grass, the subtle sounds of animals moving in the distance, and the gentle hum of the wind, all of it seemed more vivid now. She had been so focused on survival that she had forgotten to truly observe the world around her. Jackson walked beside her, quietly pointing out paths that were safer and areas where water could be found. His knowledge of the land was impressive, and she felt reassured knowing that she had guidance from someone who understood the plains intimately. During the journey, Naya shared more of her story with Jackson. She spoke of her village, her family, and the people she had lost. Though the memories were painful, sharing them made them feel lighter. Jackson listened without judgment, offering empathy rather than advice. He shared his own experiences as well, the struggles he had faced on the plains, the loneliness of life on the frontier, and the small moments of hope that had kept him going. Through their shared stories, a bond deepened between them, built on understanding, respect, and quiet companionship. By midday, they reached a small stream, the clear water sparkling under the sun. Naya knelt to drink, letting the cool water refresh her tired body. Jackson sat nearby, keeping watch, his calm presence offering reassurance. The moment was simple, but it carried profound meaning for Naya. After so many days of uncertainty, fear, and isolation, she felt the comfort of stability. She realized that survival was not only about enduring hardship, but also about finding moments of peace and connection along the way. As they continued their journey, Jackson encouraged Naya to rest when needed, teaching her small techniques to conserve energy and stay safe. She listened carefully, grateful for his guidance. She began to notice subtle changes in herself, strength returning to her legs, energy slowly rebuilding, and a sense of confidence growing inside her. The companionship of Jackson had become more than just comfort. It was a source of practical support and encouragement. She felt herself becoming more capable, more aware of her surroundings, and more prepared to face the challenges that still lay ahead. By evening, they reached the outskirts of a small settlement. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the distant sounds of life reached them, people talking, children playing, and animals moving through the town. Naya's heart lifted at the sight. After days of traveling through the wilderness, the promise of food, rest, and shelter felt like a blessing. Jackson guided her toward a safe path into the settlement, careful to avoid the rough terrain. Naya noticed the warmth in his eyes, the quiet satisfaction of someone who had helped another find safety. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for his guidance but for the trust and kindness he had shown her. Inside the settlement, Naya found a place to rest, eat, and recover her strength. The people were welcoming, curious about her journey, and respectful of her experiences. She felt a sense of belonging, a rare and precious feeling after weeks of isolation. Jackson stayed with her until she felt settled, helping her navigate the new environment and ensuring she had what she needed. The bond between them had grown stronger, no longer just a matter of survival, but a quiet companionship that promised trust, respect, and understanding. Over the following days, Naya began to feel a sense of renewal. She could eat well, sleep comfortably, and regain her strength. She also began to think about the future, not just surviving but living with purpose and hope. Jackson remained nearby, offering guidance and support without intruding. She realized that she was not alone anymore, that someone could care for her without expecting anything in return. This understanding brought a sense of peace and determination, a feeling that she could face the future with courage and confidence. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of pink and orange, Naya and Jackson sat together quietly. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the fear, the exhaustion, the storm, and the cabin where they had first shared warmth and trust. She realized that survival was about more than enduring hardship. It was about finding moments of kindness, understanding, and human connection along the way. Jackson had shown her that trust could exist even in a harsh and unpredictable world, and that connection could provide strength and hope. Naya turned to Jackson and smiled softly. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but sincere, "for everything. For the fire, the shelter, and for staying with me." Jackson nodded, his expression calm and understanding. "You did the hard part," he replied. "You survived. You kept going even when it was difficult. I just helped you along the way." His words were simple, yet they carried deep meaning. They reflected the mutual respect and understanding that had grown between them, a bond forged through shared hardship, kindness, and trust. As night fell, Naya prepared for sleep, feeling a sense of calm and security she had not known in weeks. The fire crackled softly, casting warm light across the room, and Jackson remained nearby, attentive and watchful. She realized that this journey, which had begun with fear and isolation, had brought her to a place of hope, connection, and renewal. She understood that life would still have challenges, but she felt ready to face them, strengthened by the trust, companionship, and guidance she had received. The settlement was quiet, and the night passed peacefully. Naya slept well, feeling the comfort of safety and the assurance of Jackson's presence. When she awoke, she felt renewed, ready to take on the next steps of her journey. She knew that the plains could still be harsh, but she no longer felt entirely alone. With Jackson's guidance and the knowledge that kindness and trust were possible, she felt empowered to continue. The experiences of the past days had transformed her, from a lost and fearful traveler into someone capable of facing the world with courage, hope, and resilience. As she prepared to move forward, Naya reflected on the lessons she had learned. Survival was not only about endurance, it was about recognizing moments of connection, accepting help when needed, and trusting those who had proven themselves worthy. She had discovered the quiet strength that comes from companionship, the peace that comes from shelter and warmth, and the hope that comes from understanding and kindness. These lessons would guide her as she continued her journey, providing both practical wisdom and emotional resilience. Naya stepped outside into the bright morning light, ready to continue her journey. Jackson remained close, guiding her toward the next path, offering advice and support without overstepping. Together, they walked into the plains, stronger than before, connected by the shared experiences that had brought them together. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, Naya felt confident that she could face whatever challenges awaited. She was no longer lost, no longer entirely alone. She had found safety, companionship, and the beginnings of hope, a foundation that would carry her through whatever lay ahead. The story of Naya's journey did not end with this day. It continued, marked by resilience, courage, and the quiet understanding that trust and kindness could exist even in the harshest of places. She carried the lessons of survival, the warmth of connection, and the hope of new beginnings in her heart. And as she walked alongside Jackson, she knew that while the world could be vast and challenging, there was strength in human connection, and there was always the possibility of finding a place to call home, even after the longest and most difficult journeys.